Now, viewers, we have been joined by Zubair Hussain, geopolitical expert from Malmö in Sweden, to share his views on the situation in the Middle East. Welcome to Pakistan TV, sir.
Thank you for having me. Actually, when I'm looking at these statements from President Donald Trump, it is actually clear that we are entering a very new phase of global politics. Basically, President Trump is telling the world that the American military has already achieved its main goals. Actually, he believes that by hitting the missile system and the naval bases, the biggest part of the threat from Iran is now under control. But we must be very careful here. While he's talking about winding down military operations, he's not saying that the US is leaving the region completely. He is being very firm and very direct about one thing, that Iran will not be allowed to develop nuclear weapons. That is a non negotiable red line for his administration. Actually, there is a bigger shift happening here. Trump is suggesting that the responsibility of guarding the Strait of Hormuz, which is the most important oil route in the world, should now move to the countries. Basically, he is saying that if countries like China, India, or Japan rely on this oil, then they should be the one to help pay for the security of those waters. This is massive change in how the world has worked for the last
That
50 years.
President
How?
Trump is Yes, Mr. Zubair, we see
Yes.
that President Trump has given the statement which you have just mentioned also, that he is thinking, or going towards a point where he will be winding up operations in the Middle East, specifically Iran. So are we saying that US is stepping back? Can we expect that, or can we say that there are more leadership targets in Iran which US is going to target before winding up the operations in Tehran?
If you talk about his last statements on the media, he has repeatedly said that we have won the war, and it's like you can say that the sign that they have killed most of higher leadership of the Iran. But honestly, it would be after the war very, very difficult for the most of the world. Actually, at $180 a barrel, we are talking about a global recession. It will be an economical war after this wind up of the operation. For a developing country like Pakistan, this would be an extreme challenge. When oil prices go that much, the cost of everything else follows. Transport, electricity, and even the prices of food will rise. This means that we are winding up one operation for the missiles and uh, the actual war. We are entering the new phase, which is called the economical war, and it will affect globally. While Trump is focusing on America first, the rest of the world might feel the pain of this high energy cost. Basically, the world is not ready for such a fast change in oil prices, and it could lead to a lot of instability in many different countries.
Of course, Mr. Zubair, since we're talking about instability, we also have to see that what US is actually leaving in the region of Middle East. Since we see that President Trump is now signaling towards winding up the operations, but you cannot say anything. But after this conflict comes to a point where there can be peace expected, or a little ceasefire, a short-term ceasefire expected, or maybe winding up the operations are expected. What is US actually leaving behind in Middle East? Now, oil prices have surged as well, and the Gulf countries are constantly fighting with each other. Tehran constantly attacking Gulf countries, and Gulf countries constantly retaliating back and intercepting missiles. So the whole Middle East is now in a state of war. What is US actually leaving behind in Middle East if US steps back at this very moment or in near future?
That is the big question. Actually, it is very high stake gamble. For a long time, the US Navy has been the police of the sea. If US pull back, there is no other country that can easily take the place right away. Basically, if the world navies cannot agree on how to protect the oil tankers, the insurance cost will go through the roof. This will push oil prices higher and higher. So while Trump ideas of sharing the burden sounds fair to this supporter in America, in reality, it could create a lot of confusion and danger for global trade, and it's very risky path to take.
Absolutely. Now, Mr. Zubair, since we are talking about the condition in Middle East, now we have seen oil prices have surged, and now Strait of Hormuz is another conflict Middle East is facing. Now, what is the future of Strait of Hormuz now, in your opinion, and what is the future of oil and gas and petroleum in Middle East now?
Well, it is the clear sign after the statement from the US that the war has been concluded, but the sign is that now the global economical war has started. So if we sum up it and we talk about the President Trump, what he's trying to say, the President Trump is trying to bring the soldiers home, but he is leaving the world with a very difficult economic puzzle to solve. We are moving away from a war of weapon and moving toward very uncertain future of global energy and even the global economy. Uh, and I think that this war, the economical war, it will be kind of the third world war, but it will be in an economical way. And the entire world has globally have to to support this Strait of Hormuz to be open and to conclude the war without conclusion of actually the real war that is happening in the Middle East. So now the turn is not only onto the US, it is actually onto the Iran that how they are going to end up this war. If US is telling that we are finishing the war and Mustafa Khamna is telling that we are still not in the mood to finish the war, it means that the war is still has to continue and the prices of the oil will go away, which will be the economical pressure on the world.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for joining Pakistan TV. Mr. Hussain, geopolitical expert from Sweden, was sharing his views on the recent developments in Middle East.